I had this conversation with a young audiologist, 22 years of age. I was doing some seminars with the schools there. A young kid said he wants to start his own practice. I said, if you run the practice of your dreams, how many patients would you have? He said, well, if I got 100 patients in my first year, I'd be crushing it. If I did the same for the next 3-4 years, then what I'd have is I'd have the practice of my dreams. If I could maintain that, get some repeat business, it would be all I could ever dream of. That's what it worked out to be. I said to him, though, what type of patients would you love to have? He said, I don't mind. I said, but what if you had to mind? What if you had to choose? Would you rather work all day, every day with men or women? He said, oh, I don't mind. I said, but if you had to mind, what would you rather do? And after pushing, he said, I'd much rather work with men. I said, why is that? He says, it's just easier for me in rapport. I thought, that's a good enough reason. I said, how old would they be? He said, it doesn't matter. I said, what if it had to matter? And then you had to pick. What would be the perfect age of person? He said, maybe late 70s, early 80s. I said, why? He said, well, they've probably got a hearing loss that I could really help them with. I said, are you sure? He said, well, maybe not so sure. I said, well, what would happen if you worked with somebody slightly younger first? He said, oh, that'd be cool. We'd have more to talk about, more to get on with. Oh, and I might be able to help them over a longer period of time, so me acquiring that patient might pay me back more over the long run if I could take them on a 10, 15, 20, 25-year journey. I thought, that'd be cool. I said, so how old would they be? He said, they'd be 56. I thought, that's very precise. I said, help me understand this. So I said, where would they live? Where would this practice be? He said, I grew up in Nashville. I'm from Nashville. My family's from Nashville. I'm away in San Francisco at school right now, but I'd like to go back and open a practice in Nashville. Well, that's cool. I said, why Nashville? He said, well, it's my home. I said, what else about Nashville? He says, I love it there. I love the music scene. I said, so this 56-year-old that you'd love to be able to help, what did he do for a living? Or what does he do for a living? He said, it'd be cool if he was a musician. I said, why is that? He said, well, typically they've all had challenges with their hearing somewhere along the way from listening to things that are way too loud without protection. But I'd just like to talk with them, learn about their experience, learn about their history in the industry, and see what I could pick up from that. It would just be more fun. Well, that's cool. Then I was thinking, he needs to find 100 a year, though. 100 a year is tough, isn't it? I mean, if you're in Nashville, how many 56-year-old guys are there might have had some form of story or history in music? Do you think you could find 100? You're looking around and nodding at me going, easy. See, the trouble is, if you were looking for everybody and anybody, would they be harder to find? Harder to start a conversation, harder to say, this just feels right. I said, talk to me about your practice. What does he look like? He says, well, on the walls, I've got pictures of my favorite musicians. There's country music playing in the background. We do alignments with other events for us to be able to meet new patients. They're not medical events, though. The kind of events we'd align to would be music festival events. And we'd get and sponsor bars, and we'd have bars come in and perhaps share some information. We'd maybe provide ear defenders out through many of the music scene. And we'd make ourselves known as being that if you're in music and you're finding it difficult to hear or you haven't had a hearing test in a while, we're your people. Do you think that practice would soar right now? Do you think they'd be worried about third party? Do you think they'd be concerned about what's happening at Costco? Or do you think they'd be having fun taking care of the patients they adore? See, if you've got a certain type of patient that you'd like to be able to work with all day, every day, then set your stall out to say that we know you. What every audience of people is looking for, regardless of industry, every audience is looking to you and saying, show me that you know me. That's what everybody is looking to be able to get back from you, regardless of industry. Show me that you know me. And if you're looking to fix the problem as opposed to help the person, then what you are is you're all the same. If you want to stand out in this industry, you've got to celebrate your differences. Do you think that practice will only serve musicians? No. But it'll set its stall out that way to say that these are my people, and it'll also attract people that like or are appreciative of similar things, and some will still just pick it through convenience. But we have to choose right now. What do you think Joe Public thinks of the people that dispense hearing aids? What do you think they think about the product in which you dispense? I mean, who's it for? Oh, it's too expensive? Who's it for? It's for old people. How well does it work? Not so good. So me coming at this from a puzzle, knowing that what I do is I help businesses to grow, I help sales professionals become more sales focused, increase their sales results, I thought, isn't this interesting? See, what I'm looking to do is to work involved with an industry that is looking to sell something to people that they fundamentally do not want to own, that will work about half as well as they hoped it would, and for a significant sum of money, more than they were prepared to pay. So if I'm looking to fix a sales challenge, this was about as difficult as it could be. This guy's a pretty impressive character. Anybody know who this is? This is Usain Bolt. For those of you that don't know Usain Bolt, he's the most decorated track athlete of all time, won more gold medals in Olympics than any other track athlete. He's pretty freaking awesome. So when I get to meet freaking awesome people, I want to know what can I learn from them. I was given the opportunity to ask a handful of questions. My first two, I was so nervous I messed them up. But I did ask two great questions. And I learned something quite profound. See, the first question I asked him that I got value back from was I asked Usain, what was he thinking? What was he thinking when he stood on the start line waiting for the gun to go, when he's racing in the 100 meters or 200 meters, and it matters most? What is he thinking when he's on his start line? What's going through his head? And I was really interested in what his answer might be. And here's what he said. He looked at me and he smiled, and if anybody knows the guy, he's got one hell of a smile. And he smiled back. He looked to his left and he looked to his right, and he responded by saying, what I'm thinking is, why did these guys bother turning up? Now that made me think a little bit about confidence and self-belief. See, we spend so much of our time looking at what the competition are doing, being fearful of the competition, but the people who operate at the best of the best of the best, they're looking somewhere different. They're looking to the finishing line, and they're not worried about these people. They're worried about their own performance and what they're going to lay down. I thought that was cool. I said that, but when you're in the race, what's going through your mind in the race? And here's what he said. He said, when I'm in the race, all I'm focusing on is running the best 110 meters of my life. Now, he was talking about running the 100-meter dash. Why is he thinking that what he's looking to do is to run the best 110 meters of his life? Because he runs further and farther than other people. He moves the finish line back, and as a result of which he runs a pretty darn mean 100 meters. So I wonder what we should be doing to perhaps move that finish line out a touch in our conversations. If you're in the business of selling wedding dresses, when would be the most important day to celebrate if you're in the wedding dress retail business? When do you think they should focus? What's the most important day to them? It's talking about the wedding day, right? See, still, most wedding dress retailers will celebrate the day they sold the dress. They'll sell the dress and they'll say today was a good day, and then they'll have some service to do afterwards, right? They'll have follow-up visits. They'll have readjustments. What they'll then have is they'll then have the day they deliver the dress to the customer. And all those days can go beautifully well, create a beautiful experience. Do they matter most those days? See, when is it most important that that sale performs? People think it's the wedding day, right? That's the day that it matters most. Show of hands in the room right now, who's ever worn a wedding dress? I always like to see what happens here. You know, when you wore that wedding dress, what truly was the most important day? It was after the wedding day, wasn't it? It was the day you got to see yourself in the dress. It was when you got to look at the photographs and say, am I happy with what I see? Yes, the first experience needed to be right. Yes, the fitting needed to be right. Yes, all the steps in the way needed to be right. Yes, you needed to feel great in the day, but the day that mattered most was the memories that you could treasure after the fact. The moments that would happen way long into the future. The opportunity to look back on those moments time and time again and truly treasure them. That exact same thing is true in our industry. But we lose sight. See, I can make it crystal clear to a wedding dress retail business that if they want to soar right now, they should stop worrying about selling the dress and wonder about how good the bride's going to look in the photos. If they can sell towards that point, what do they do differently in their process that has them talked about? A huge number of things. What can you do to stretch out that finish line a little in your business? I want you to imagine a situation. The situation I'd like you to imagine is that you're in a shopping mall. You've got a couple of kids alongside you. You're walking through the shopping mall, you see a thing in the store that you quite like. As you walk towards the thing, you pick it up, you turn back for the opinion of the kids, and in that moment, the kids are gone. For most of you, that thought, that visualization would be panic, desperation, despair, right? Two of you are thinking, yes! Finally. Then the realization kicks in, though. Realization kicks in, must find the children, must find the children, must find the children. Knowing that you must find the children, how well would you describe them to a stranger in the street to increase your chances of finding them? What would you give them? Details. How many details? All of them, right? Everything you can. Hair color, eye color, what they were wearing, reach for a photograph on your phone, what they might answer to in terms of nicknames, where you last see them, what some of their favorite places are that they might lend to migrate towards. You'd give them everything. Because we know the better the description we create, the more likely we are to find our people. We know that to be true. The thing that we would then do is we'd take that description and share it with who? Authorities, yeah. On the way to finding authorities, my guess is we'd also share it with everybody. Everybody. We'd take our crystal clear description, we'd share it with everybody because we know that increases our chances of finding our people. We know that would be true. Did you know that the patients you don't have right now are just missing people? That's all they are. Let me give you another way of being able to ask for something in a rejection-free fashion. Quick show of hands. Who sees themselves as open-minded? I mean, what's the alternative? It's not even what you think it is. See, the alternative to saying I'm open-minded is, well, I'm an idiot. Everybody likes to see themselves as open-minded. I know not everybody raised their hand, you see. If I ask that question to an audience, I always get 80, 90% of the hands go up. And I also know that the other hands wouldn't have raised regardless of what I asked. I know that would be true. Even if I offered cake or free beer, what would happen is nobody would show up. But the majority of people like to see themselves as open-minded. How do we use that fact in our conversational skills to get more people to consider what it is that we would like them to consider? See, if I wanted somebody to consider my idea, instead of me asking them to consider my idea, I'd put it in the format of a question, and I might say, how open-minded would you be to? Hey, how open-minded would you be to trying our new technology? How open-minded would you be to introducing me to a few of your friends? How open-minded would you be to giving this a go? How open-minded would you be to looking at something that was just a little bit better than this? How open-minded would you be to working with us as opposed to the guy down the street? Can you see why that would work? Because what we're doing is we're presenting something where no is very difficult to pick. You turn something from 50-50 odds into 90-10 in your favor, purely by changing the way you ask the question. I'm going to prove just how good we are at questions. Let me come talk to some people who avoid eye contact. I'm going to ask some questions of you. These are typical questions that are asked in daily life. Just prove how bad we are at questions. Let me pick on you, young lady. Your name is? Danielle. How are you?
I'm great.
I'm great. Period on the end of that. We're done. Efficient. Let's see if we can get somebody to level 2. Young lady. Your name is? Yeah.
Terry.
Terry. How are you?
Freezing.
Freezing.
My nose is cold. I'm using the thing for a blanket.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Still, single point answer, right? Single point answer. Just a period at the end of it. Let's try somebody else. See if I can get somebody level 2. You look like you're an advanced player. Your name is? Anthony. Anthony, hey, how are you?
Great.
Come on. Somebody's got to be advanced level. Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How am I? Woo! I'm great, thanks too. Period. There are only 2 levels. That's as good as it gets. But a conversation requires what? It requires to go backwards and forwards a few times. Anybody ever seen a good game of tennis? What made a good game of tennis a good game of tennis? It was the rallies and the volleys, right? It was the whole thing. It was when the game went. Hey, right? They're the ones that we like the most. Our conversations are the same, but the society we now live in, we've trained everybody to be efficient with language as opposed to effective with language. I say, hey, how are you? You say, I know this one. I'm great. Oh, hang on. How are you? Oh, I'm great. Whew, we survived. I'm going to just share one other mistake that we make a lot in conversation. And I'm going to borrow this volunteer here. Your name is? Amanda. Amanda, tell me about the last place you went on your vacations.
I was in New York last year.
You were in New York last year? I love it here in New York. It's become my new home over the last couple of years. And I'm from the UK, but I travel around a great deal. I've been to many places, but I love the fact that I live between London and New York. Some of the other cities that I think I could live in is maybe Sydney's cool. It's another city I like, but I've been like almost everywhere. I've worked in 57 different countries across 5 different continents. Did you know I've written 5 best-selling books? I'm freaking awesome.
Sound awesome.
How often does that happen? All the time, right? We ask a question of somebody, they give us an answer. We proceed by then telling them our version of their answer, thinking we're showing interest. It doesn't feel too good being on the receiving end of that conversation, does it? Can we try it another way? Amanda, tell me about the last place you went on your vacation.
In New York.
In New York. Cool. When was that?
Last fall for my anniversary.
Oh, fantastic. And what anniversary were you celebrating?
We can ask my husband, was it year 7? 7.
7th. Well played, sir. Well played. 7th.
number guy.
Hey, cool. And what did you enjoy best about New York?
We saw Chicago.
Okay.
Have you ever been to a Broadway show?
I've been to a number of shows, yeah, they've been great.
What's
I've
your
not been
favorite?
to Chicago, though.
Oh.
See how we could let this conversation, though, play out a lot further? If all we do is that we take the thing that's being asked, we listen to that thing, and we ask a couple more questions, one of 2 things is going to happen. Thing number 1 is the other person is going to massively enjoy being the center of attention for a moment. Or what they're going to do is realize they're taking too much of the attention. They're going to give some of it back onto you, and we're going to allow this thing to be able to exchange backwards and forwards time and time again. How many questions, though, did I prepare? There's a clue? Yeah? 1. And where did my other questions come from? Her answers, right? That's where they came from, which meant I had to do what? Had to do listening, to listen. Let's just play this out again. You're wandering through New York, you see some shoes in a shoe store. You think, these are nice, like these. How much are these? They say they're $250. And then you find out that that's each. How do you now feel? How do you feel about this store in question? Tricky, right? They've just sneaked me into something. They don't believe that they're worth it. I mean, answer me this. How many of you are in the business of fitting mono-loss? That's the thing you specialize in. I'm specialist in single impaired hearing loss. Any specialists in that? Because you should be the only people that are quoting single unit prices. We say that we have a reputation as being shysters, being dishonest, and being disloyal. You say that you're none of those things, and then we start ourselves out on early conversations with patients being evasive and telling lies. Is it our fault or their fault that they might think what they think of us? Now, I've picked on you here. I know I could have picked on anybody in the room and would have got a similar set of outcomes. So this isn't specific to an individual. This is happening everywhere. That we're not helping the patient with our answer to this initial question. 2 things that I'd love you to be able to change is, number 1, change your price lists. I mentioned earlier on there are only 21 people in this room that are selling hearing aids by the unit. None of it is most of you guys. You're selling the results of what it is that you do. See, if 1 hearing aid is $3,000, how much are 2? 6,000. We're good at math today. How much more work is there? Is there half the amount of work if it's a mono loss? No. It's at least the same. It might even be more, mightn't it? Yet everybody who buys 1 hearing aid gets half price audiology. It's funny, isn't it? See, I wonder if what we want to happen is we want more of our patients to understand that the value is in us, the value isn't in the technology. I wonder if it was $61.90 for a pair and it was $48.90 for 1, more people would understand that what they were doing is they're buying you and not the product. I wonder if that would change. And when I say I wonder, I know it changes because everywhere we've changed it, the patients have started to see it. It's brave though. It's a brave move, but if we want to change the way that people think about us, we have to change the way that people think.